Hi, Taylor.
What's up, Lauren? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Happy to have you. Obviously, we work together, but wanted to take this as an opportunity just for you to kind of tell the story about how Symmetry started, a little bit about your background, and just we'll kind of get into it from there.
See where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Symmetry started in 2018 was when we officially started. It's not most people, but a lot of people know. Before that, I was in the investment business. So I grew up in Montgomery, Alabama. Went to the University of Alabama after college. I moved out to San Francisco. Uh, Quite a different place from Alabama, but
Change the
shockingly, there
pace. Yeah.
there were a lot of people from the South out there, and they all kind of stuck together and hung together. I graduated in 2001, so after the first big stock bubble crash of the last 50 or so years, and really wasn't sure what I was going to do. I majored in finance and investment management, and I loved that. And I loved markets, but I had a hard way to get into it. So I ended up getting in kind of backdoor in accounting, and was doing accounting work for hedge funds. And then I to I moved to Dallas and helped them open an office, and I did that for a couple of years. Through that whole process, I was going through a getting a kind of certification, which is called the Chartered Financial Analyst, and it's a pretty long, detailed, very, very hard, a lot of work,
Yeah.
very high failure rate. I got it in 3 years, and towards the end of that, I was like, I don't want to do the accounting work anymore, or the auditing and tax stuff. I want to get on the investment side, and that's
Mhm.
how I made it to Memphis. Got a job here with a registered investment advisor. I was running their portfolio of hedge funds that we invested in for high net worth clients. Did that for a couple of years and got bored with that. There wasn't really a lot of action. I wanted to be like more in the mix. And
Mhm.
my boss at that company got me an interview over at McVeigh Trading with Charlie McVeigh. And this was 2006, probably that time. So
Okay.
right before the housing market blew up.
Right.
And they were big on, they were pretty much like expecting that to happen, predicting it. The chief economist over there, Michael Drury, was very on top of that, and they needed help kind of for that financial side, the economic side. And so I came and started working under the chief economist, and was there during that whole chaos. And that was probably one of the wildest things I've ever experienced in my life.
I bet.
Sitting there and just watching markets implode on themselves as things were happening in Congress. It was pretty wild, and it was fun to have a front row seat, making money, losing money, and kind of a little bit of in between, a lot of both at different times, and stayed there. I was basically worked for the chief economist, and we did interest rate trading and traded S&P futures, and was just kind of in the mix of everything. And McVeigh is a very big commodity trading company here in
Hmm.
Memphis. Great firm, loved it. But it was one of those things where I was sitting on the trading floor, very high, you know, high stress environment. I was up at
Yeah.
I was pretty much looking at waking up at like 4:30 in the morning, trying to get a workout into my den, and then I would get on my computer and see what in the world went out on overnight. Then I'm at my desk by 6 something, writing a piece to give to all the traders and all the
Hmm.
people on the floor of kind of what happened in the economic world that night, what happened in the political world. And I was like, man, this is just hard.
That's a lot.
It's just a lot. And then at that time, I also was going through a divorce. So you kind of have personal, professional,
Hmm.
just chaos going on. And, you know, people know me like from growing up being younger. I was always kind of a very um, hard, like I would say I could fly off the handle relatively quickly, very, get very angry quickly. And so that just, kind of tended toward the anxious state,
Hmm.
worrier, and all of that kind of happening at the same time was putting me down pretty bad. Started doing, going to therapy, And then in 2014, I started meditating. Read a little
How'd
book.
you, yeah, yeah.
It's a book called The Inner Gym, which fit with, I was like, oh, this is great. It's written by Light Watkins, who
Hmm.
is, he's got a bunch of other books that are really great. And, you know, ironically, my current wife, Caroline, she went to a meditation retreat with him in Bali like 3 years later.
Oh,
But
funny.
I read his book and it just kind of sat with me. And I was like, well, this is interesting. I started kind of doing the practices that he had in there and just felt a little bit calmer and felt a little better. Um, then found Wim Hof, and I was like, well, this is really powerful. Like, I do these breathing exercises. I feel like super euphoric and very calm and peaceful. And um, I was like, man, this is crazy that you can feel this way just by breathing
Hmm.
and then holding your breath. And so that kind of led me, when I get onto a subject, I get very deep into everything on it. And so I just went kind of down the rabbit hole of breath and started to listen to podcasts, read as much as I could. There wasn't really much out there. And this is 2014,
Hmm.
2015 time frame. Um, Heard Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reese, Brian McKenzie on Tim Ferriss's podcast. They were talking about the ice baths and the sauna and these pool workouts and all these breath techniques that they do, and that they have these XPT experiences, and that, you basically come out and train with them. And I was like, well, I'm doing that. Yeah, I was like,
Sign me
sign me
up.
up. I was like, newly single. What else am I gonna do? I was like, this is my birthday present to myself.
Hmm.
So I went the next year, and that really kind of set me off. Of I was like, okay, this is pretty incredible. I'd already started like writing a newsletter,
Hmm.
which I called the Long Game, which still put out on LinkedIn now, but started out as just kind of a um, finding this information that I thought was, kind of aggregator of information of things on health and wellness, and sending it out to a few friends. And then it ended up to, a couple thousand people, just kind of organically.
Hmm.
But I was like, as I'm writing this, still working on the trading floor, and was like so
Right.
scared that anybody would find it. I was petrified that
Really? So you weren't
somebody
talking about it with anybody you were working
no,
with,
no, no, not at all. I was like, no, I'm not bringing this up to anybody. They're gonna think
like
I'm
church and
crazy.
states.
Yeah, I was like, they're gonna think I'm crazy. If anybody ever finds the stuff I'm writing about, they're gonna think, oh man, what, he's lost his freaking mind. I mean, this is Memphis, Tennessee in 2015. It's a whole
Right.
different ball game.
Yeah.
Um,
And did you start to notice any, because you started with kind of the Inner Gym Light Walk-ins book, right? And meditation. And
mhm.
you said earlier that you would like quick to anger, high stress situation. Probably that was, I would imagine, kind of the environment and attitudes of people that you were working with. But did you start to see any shifts within yourself, like soon thereafter? And kind of how are people
Oh man,
responding to you at work?
100%. Like, just able to let things roll off my back a little easier.
Hmm.
Just say, kind of riding the waves of life with a little bit more calm and steady space, as opposed to reacting to everything.
Hmm.
It's just small little things at first that would bother me, didn't bother me as much. They still bother me, but I might not be
Like,
like initial quick reaction to it.
hmm.
And that was also things going on in my personal life, or
Sure.
dealing with friends, and just things were kind of like, all right, whatever. Is this that really big of a deal? Kind of thing.
Hmm.
Do I need to react the way I have in the past, or can I just somewhat let it go?
Hmm.
So I saw a quick shift, and that's really what drew me to it, and was
Yeah.
like, if I feel this, and this is kind of going on, it can't be just me. And then I'm like, well, these things have been practices for thousands of years. Uh, so there's a very historical context of people doing this stuff and finding
Hmm.
power in it.
Right.
And then you can kind of look at, like, every religion has some type of contemplative, meditative practice. Doesn't matter what you're looking at, there's all something there. And so I was like, this is just super powerful. And then I went out and like trained at this experience, and you went to
Hmm.
Laird and Gabby's house, basically trained in their pool. And I'm sitting around, and it's like Olympic gold medalists like Carrie Walsh, won like every volleyball medalist, she was there. And There were just top level doctors, lawyers, finance people, and pro athletes, like all training and doing this stuff together.
Yeah.
And that was really kind of like eye opening that, all right, these people are like super high performers in whatever field they are, and they're using all these techniques.
Hmm.
There's something to this.
Right.
Um, and I just fell in love with it and was kind of like, I still keep in touch with quite a few of those people who I went to that with. And
Hmm.
basically at that point, I was like, okay, I've got to do something. And I knew if I didn't quit my job, that I would never quit my job,
Yeah.
because it's just an industry where you kind of get stuck. And you don't necessarily get stuck, but it's kind of like a golden handcuffs where you're just
Right.
stay on the rabbit wheel forever. Unless I was like, I have to make a hard break. And it took me a long time to get up the courage to do it. And I started telling people. I was dating Caroline at that time, and told her, and she was like,
That you wanted to leave.
that, yeah, and she was great with that. And then I told my dad, who I was like, he's gonna think I'm freaking nuts because he's about as old school as it gets. I mean, he,
Uh-huh.
you know, played football at Alabama in the '60s under Bear Bryant, was very stern, very kind of a, very hard driven, focused person. And I was like, he's gonna think I'm freaking crazy. And he was like, I get it. He's like, I understand, and supportive. And then I told some of my friends, everybody was kind of like, yeah, we could see this happening. And I finally got up the courage to tell people at work, and they were all kind of like, yeah, we could, everybody knows. You kind of just sense it from people, body language,
Yeah.
the energy you bring, that something isn't right. So I quit 6 months later, had no idea what I was going to do. I was
Wait,
like,
and had anyone from works like seen the long game like
no,
that
they
you were
hadn't seen
setting
any of
out?
that stuff.
Okay.
They hadn't seen any of that stuff at that point. I mean, now, they all know.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
some of them come do Heat Nice with us.
Yeah.
Now, but nobody. I don't think any of them had ever seen any of the stuff that I was putting out.
It's a
And I
week
quit.
waiting for the cliffhanger, like who found
Yeah,
out?
it was just like they never saw it, but I was scared that they would.
Yeah.
So I quit, and basically with no real life, where I had a runway, and I was like, okay, I've got this much time where I need to figure something out.
Yeah.
And I took like 3 months off, and I was also training for a 24-hour world's toughest mudder at that point, that I had. So I was like, I'm going to do this, and then it's the holidays, and then starting in 2018 January, I hired a business coach,
Mhm.
um, and she kind of helped me put the whole thing together. I knew I wanted something to do with breath work. I knew I wanted something with heat and ice. I didn't know how to all put it together, whether it was a
Mhm.
studio. I was like, there's no way I can do a studio back in 2018.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
who's going to come to this thing?
Well, and good thing you didn't, because then when COVID
Well, yeah,
hit,
then if COVID hit, I would have really blown up. So I kind of went through months figuring that out. And then uh, at that time, I went through and got certified at XPT. Like, they started a
Mhm.
coaching certification. So I was in the first group that got certified with them, and then went through a bunch of different certifications after that. But I went through the first group, and then through that, met a guy in Virginia who was making mobile saunas. And I was like, well, that's
Hmm.
interesting. I was like, let's do that. Um, so I got a mobile sauna and started taking it around to gyms and yoga studios, all over Memphis,
Mhm.
along with basically I went to Birmingham, Texas, Atlanta, uh, down to the beach, 30A, Nashville, driving the sauna around, and basically spending a lot of weekends at gyms and yoga studios, throwing people in ice baths and saunas and doing breath work.
Mhm.
And at that time, nobody here had any idea what I was doing, or, they were just kind of like, all right, this is cool and interesting. And luckily, I'd been, a community of people that I've been working out with, and they knew what I did before. So they were like, this might be a little crazy, but, maybe there's something to it just because of who
Mhm.
I was. And I think you probably, I don't, did you come to one of those first Heat and Ice
Not heat and
hot
ice,
yoga
but
class?
the first time I was going through teacher training and you came and did like a long journey of the breath session,
That's right.
and all of us were like, I'm sorry, what just happened? You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was 2018, I think.
Yeah, it's probably, yeah. And
Hmm.
that's I would do, like, yoga studios, go do like just more of experimental breath, like experiential. So you could,
Hmm.
that what we call the journey of the breath, like you just said, where you're kind of taking the nervous system up and down and, uh, letting people experience how powerful breath can be. Uh,
Hmm.
and that was really where I started. And then was like, okay, there's got to be a little bit more to that. Took on some one-on-one clients, people who I'd met who were dealing with stress or different issues, and just kind of started working with them through some basic stuff. Um, and then COVID hit, and I was like, oh, damn, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And at that point, I was kind of like, all right, well, I can do this stuff virtually, except for the heat and ice. So I cut
Hmm.
the heat and ice out and started doing 3 breath sessions every week, maybe
Hmm.
even more than that. I even did like some workouts because people were just sitting at home, so I
Right.
just started like
Yeah.
one day we did stress and we do something on health, and then we do a journey of the breath. And at that same time, um, Elizabeth Gilbert, uh, you
Right.
know, best-selling author,
Eat, pray,
she,
love, right?
yeah, Eat, Pray, Love, and quite a few other
Others. Yeah.
things. She mentioned me that because I've had a bunch of stuff on Insight Timer, and she was doing an interview and mentioned that her and this pod that she was with, these friends, they all did my breath sessions, and then they would go jump in the river, the East River, and do like cold plunges together. Because all of a sudden I started getting all these like followers, and like I was like, who are these people? Where they? And so I was just like,
Where are they coming
where did
from?
you come from? And they told me that. So then I texted her, or I emailed her agent, and like a couple days later, I got a text from her. And so she started coming to the virtual breath classes and bringing her friends. Suleika Jawad was another who was part of that,
Hmm.
who's written a couple of books. And so they kind of like helped me in that time, and, kind of get my name out there with some people. And then from that point, I was really wanting to get into deep. I was like, there's more to this. This is just very surface level.
Hmm.
Um, and that's when I went into whole, all right, there's how can I like work with people on a deeper level to let them understand these practices, and started doing a whole lot, went down straight into like the one-on-one coaching. And, it started as like doing like 1 or 2 sessions. It's like, you can't really do anything for like 1 or 2 sessions with people
Hmm.
because it helps in the moment, but are they going to keep up with the practices? Are they going to keep going? What is the end game? So
Right.
I kind of developed, working with another coach, like a 12-week program, really diving, like starting basic and kind of building people up and understanding stress, their nervous system, their breathing patterns, how it affected them, and built that up, and started doing a lot more one-on-one clients that way. And that kind of really grew. And then from there, I think, it was like, what other ways can I kind of like get people? And so I did that 30-day breath challenge, and that's where
Hmm.
you joined that. And that's where
Hmm.
we really connected after that.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I remember seeing you at the studio and I was like, hey, I signed up for the 30-day breath challenge. I'm going to do it after I give birth because
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like super pregnant at the time.
You're like, I'm pregnant, and
I was like, this will be
this will be
perfect
perfect when
timing.
I give
Yeah.
birth.
Yeah.
And that kind of started bringing us to where we are today, really.
Hmm. And wait, so go back because obviously it's not like it's Taylor Taylor Somerville breath practices. It's symmetry. So where did the
The
name
name
symmetry
Symmetry.
come from? Yeah, and why?
Um, Well, I have a little OCD. I like things in order and in place. I also believe that, while balance is kind of like a bullshit thing, you don't really have balance on a day-to-day basis. You can't be fully balanced over a broad time horizon, kind of like seasons. They need to balance out and be somewhat symmetrical. If you're getting too deep into your work, you're probably forgetting your family and your relationships or your health. If you're
Hmm.
all you're worried about is your health, you're probably not working well. And so you gotta kind of play with all those. And over the long run, you gotta have like a symmetry.
Hmm.
And that, working with my first coach, that's kind of where I came up with that name and that
Yeah.
practice. And then we kind of came to the Symmetry Six from there as well.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what is, like, if you're looking at full on health and performance, like how can I be my best, perform my best? Well, you got to have the right mindset. The thoughts that you're thinking are hugely important. Your breath is the driver of all that. It's the first thing we do. It's the last thing we do. Every system in our body is impacted by how we're breathing, but
Hmm.
we can also use it to kind of manipulate our state. Then, all right, how are you moving?
And are you moving at all?
Are you moving at all?
First of all, yeah.
What are you eating? That's important. What are you putting into your body? What are the relationships in your life, which may be, almost as big a driver of anything in longevity is your relationships and the
Hmm.
people you're with. And then are you resting and sleeping, or because, coming from a type A person, it was, it was always you sleep when you die. You just,
Hmm.
that's being a child of the 80s and 90s. That's just what it was. There was no
Yep.
talk of sleep. Nobody slept. I mean, it was
Nope.
you're going as hard as you can go to until you just crack
Work
out.
hard, play hard.
And yeah, exactly. Work hard, play hard. And it's like, well, you better sleep hard in there sometimes too. And so that's where I'm going to develop the Symmetry Six. And, it's evolved in its thinking somewhat, but those six areas are still, I think, are fundamental in how
Hmm.
you're going to show up in multiple areas of your life. It's like if you want to perform great at work, you better feel good. And to feel good, you better be moving, you better be eating well, you better be sleeping, or you're
Hmm.
not going to feel good. You might think you are, but you're going to be just really surviving. Um, no matter what, the relationships you have, they better be firing. You have people around you who pick you up, support you, love you. If you have people who are just bringing you down or, you know, living a kind of a crappy lifestyle, you're going to go to those people and live the same way they are. So that's important. The stories you're telling yourself every day about the type of person you are and the things that you do, that's very important. And it comes up, these are, all things that I have to work on and continue to work on every day because it's not really easy. They're simple, but
Hmm.
they're not easy practices. And so, I have to live what I preach. And honestly, I don't always do that. You can ask my wife; she'll tell you that. But I try, and luckily, I have people to remind me when I'm not.
Hmm.
And but I think those are just like the six areas that are kind of you must focus on.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, nowadays, I think it's you turn on Instagram or the latest health influence or whatever, and they're wanting you to focus on these little bitty things that are the latest biohacks or supplements or just take a pill for that or and it's the 0.001%. And if you're not doing all the other stuff, it's not going to really help you out. It's just
Right.
it sends you on a perpetual cycle of needing more and more and more of that stuff, as opposed to you have all these things that you can do when you kind of learn a framework and understanding. You have them forever.
Hmm. Like, what are the
And you,
principles and the foundations to start with before you get to those things?
yeah, which those things can come into play, and we bring them into play with people all the time, and I use supplements and stuff like that too. But uh, I used to use a lot more and try a lot more, and realize that most of them don't do anything.
Hmm.
They're expensive, and they make your pee really expensive, but they're not really helping you that much. So it's making sure you're doing those fundamental basics and also not being so rigid that you can't let go, that you have to do them like 100% of the time. I mean,
Hmm.
that's one of the things that I've personally had to work with because I can be very rigid and routine and like, no, it's got to be this way, this way, this way. But sometimes you just got to let go and it's okay. You get 80-20.
Hmm.
If you can do the right stuff 80 to 90% of the time, okay, whatever. That 10 to
Right.
20%
Like,
to
you've got
slow
to
down
live your
doesn't
life.
matter. Yeah, you got to live your life and have fun.
Right.
Because what's the point if you're not having fun along the way?
Yeah. And speaking of, you're a dad now too. So how do you use all these things and, from mindset to relationships and movement, nutrition, like all of it, how do you use that parenting and relating to your daughter?
Very hard.
Yeah.
Um, well, she keeps us moving, that's for sure.
Yeah.
She's two, so we're very early in the parenthood stage, but um, she keeps us moving a lot. And I'm big on trying to keep as little, little process stuff from her that, at this stage, I'm like, all right, I can actually control what she's eating to some extent, try to giving her healthy and, good food. And then, trying to also model the behavior and calmness, and she's freaking out. All right, if I can control my breathing and slow it down, you know, notice that, hey, that's when she can kind of do that too in
Mm-hmm.
the states, and that she's watching everything we're doing and modeling it and doing it. So if I'm freaking out or we're freaking out, she's gonna freak out.
Yeah.
But especially it's like kind of like going to bed. She sometimes recently has not been very happy about it, but we
Yep.
stay calm and slow down and just really try to slow. I mean, one of the things I really try to do is slow my breath. Like when she's kind of getting into that state, and so that helps her a lot, helps her calm down. She's just kind of mirroring that aspect on her own. So using it a lot there, and then just also on the mindset piece, being like, we're just basically doing the best we have with the tools that we have at our hand at the moment.
Yeah.
We're going to make a lot of mistakes continually over and over and over and over again, and try to remind myself of that
Mm-hmm.
a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it ain't going to be perfect, and it's what's the point of it having perfect? And it's also like, does she really need to? She's not going to be perfect. I'm
No.
not perfect. It's just, can we help her become the best she's going to be?
Yeah. And just continually learning from every experience and
Yeah, and
moving
she teaches
forward.
us a lot. And seeing her wonder in her eyes, and that's one of the best things I've found about being a parent, is seeing that childlike curiosity. Like, one of my favorite things to do is, she gets upset, take her outside and show her the birds, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like she can go from absolutely freaking out to laughing in joy just by looking at a bird
Yeah.
flying, or going to eat in the bird feeder. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's the most wonderful thing in the world, and it completely changes her state like instantly. And it's
Yeah.
just like this little bit of joy and wonder like that. And play, I think as adults we get too rigid, we get stuck on the logistics of life and driving and go forward to, I know I need to be reminded of it, is that play's super important.
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's how we learn how to do a lot of things, is through play,
Yeah.
and it keeps us young. So
Yeah.
that's been a great aspect of my life recently.
We could all probably take a page from a 2-year-old book in terms of just reconnecting with wonder and joy and when we're in those states ourselves, like, okay, let's put this into perspective for a second, depending on the situation, obviously.
That's right.
But um well, I know we're getting close to time for both of us, but if what's like one thing that you think people I mean, just generally about the work that we do, what do you want people to know, or kind of what's your key takeaway, I guess, for people today?
When I is that we all have these tools inside of us, especially with the breath. I feel like, we were having this kind of talk on one of our group calls today about reaching for external, and like things like reaching for the phone to pacify us,
Mm-hmm.
and it's basically just like being a child in that phase, where we have tools and things that we can do inside of us to help us, and our breath is one of them. And all you do is learn how to use it, and it doesn't take a lot. It just takes a little bit of practice, and it takes a little bit of focus. And it's simple, not easy, as I've said before, but that we have tools inside of us. We can make changes. We can really do what we want to do. We just kind of have to take that first step, and really creating that first action step and moving forward, to let go of whatever you're struggling with or holding back, or if it's becoming overwhelmed with stress, you can change that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
some people definitely are a little bit more higher on the anxiety stress scale, but you have the ability to work on that and make changes. And sometimes you just need to be guided through it for a little bit, and then you have something like the breath to use for the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah. And you
It's
always have it. It doesn't
You
like
always
it's
have
not
it, and
something
if
you
you
have to
don't have
go
it,
get.
you don't need to really worry about anything else, because
Right.
it's you're gone too.
Yeah.
um,
And then so for the people who are like, okay, I need to take that first step, but I don't know where to start or how to do that, what would you say to them?
I would say the first thing you do, wake up in the morning and don't get in your phone. Just spend 1 minute focusing on your breath, and then 2, and then 3, go up to 5. Just see how you feel for a week. If you want to learn more, then reach out to us and we'd be happy to help you.
I'm like, your first step, call us.
But yeah, I mean, really, just take it in. Just check into your breath. Just become aware of it at 1st.
Hmm.
And that's what one of the first things we do with all of our clients is just creating that awareness. And then you kind of understand your patterns and your triggers, and that can kind of help you deal with those stresses of life coming up. They're
Hmm.
not going away.
Right.
We talk a lot about stress, and good or bad, it just is. You just got to learn how to deal with it and learn how to use it to grow, and don't try to push it away, but learn how to handle it in a better fashion. And we all have that ability. It's just whether or not we want to take a little time to learn how to do it.
Right. Absolutely.
And we're here to help.
We're here to help. Okay, Taylor, obviously I know this, but people don't necessarily. Where can they find you? How do they get in touch with you? All that good stuff.
Our website is the best place right now. Symmetry.live. We're both taking a little break off of social media for the month of July, and
Hmm.
we'll be reporting back what we learned about this experience in August.
Yeah.
But yeah, Symmetry.live is the best place to find us. We've got a lot of free resources. We've got online courses. Book a call, set it up with either of us, and we'd be happy to chat.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time today. It was fun to hear all the background.
Thank you, Lauren. Thanks for having me.
Of course. See you later.
All right, have a good one.
Okay, bye.
Okay, let me figure out.